Hi, I'm Peggy Farren. Welcome to the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel, nature, and fine art photography. Hey, today we're going to be talking about food photography. Food photography is big business, so we've got commercial photographer Keith French here, which we're very honored to have him. So stay tuned and you're going to learn some great tips about food photography. The Understand Photography Show is first a podcast, so if you'd leave us a review on iTunes, we really appreciate it. Heather puts a link right in the show notes, so it's easy to click on that link. If you like our show, please leave us a review. You can listen to us however you listen to podcasts. If you listen, on Spotify or Stitcher or whatever, just do a search for the Understand Photography Show and you will find us. We're pretty easy to find at this point. We've been doing this for 4 years. Now, we also have a couple of Facebook groups that we hope you'll join us, and they're free, of course. They're Facebook groups. The first one is called the Understand Photography Group, and that's our general group where you can ask questions about photography, any kind of photography. Joe Fitzpatrick started Monochrome Mondays and Wildlife, or whatever Wednesdays I think he changed it to, so you can share pictures. We have themes, and it's really a nice group. Everybody is friendly. If they're not friendly, we kind of get rid of them. We want it to be a really welcoming group where you're not afraid to ask questions if you're a beginner or even if you're advanced. The other group is called Selling Your Photography as Art. Now that group is about if you want to sell your fine art photography, if you want to know more about how do I sell my stuff on the internet, how do I put together a good artist portfolio, how do I do an artist statement, anything to do with selling your artwork, that's what we talk about in that Facebook group. You can find both of them at facebook.com/understandphotography, and you'll see a little thing that says groups. So you can find either group there. Please visit our website as well, because that's where we're going to put the show notes. So if you want to remember everything we talked about today, understandphotography.com, and you'll see we have a tab that says the Understand Photography Show, and that's where the show notes will be. So hopefully you will go to our website and check it all out. I am at the Florida Camera Club Council Conference. Whoo, that was a lot of C's. Anyway, this is our Florida statewide convention for photographers, and we've got some great, amazing speakers. We call it the FCCC. The FCCC puts this on every year in March, and it's almost always in Fort Myers, Florida, which is convenient for me. It's only an hour away. And we bring our lights and everything, and we interview all these great people. But if you are, if you want to come to a good photography convention, the FCCC convention is really good. So look for it in March of 2021. So my guest is Keith French. He is here. He's one of the speakers here at the convention. And Keith is a commercial photographer in the Chicago area. He leads workshops. He also manages and runs a camera store and printing service. So he's a busy man. So welcome.
Thanks, Peg. It's great to be here.
And it's nice to meet you. I've never
met
you before,
yeah.
So it's my first time meeting you.
Yeah, I've been back in Florida for many years. It's nice to be back here.
I thought everybody just drove down I-75 and came on down.
Maybe when I retire.
So tell us a little about your photographic journey. I mean,
sure.
Don't give us the long version, though.
No, I could probably peel it back, but it's been a strange one. It started as more of just a hobby while I was still on active duty in the Marine Corps. Knowing I was going to see some cool places, I thought I should have a good camera. And during the initial training phases, I needed a nice distraction, and learning photography was one of those nice distractions. Kind of did it the hard way, out of the back of the magazines.
Oh my God.
Boy, it would be nice to have the internet like we have today for learning. But after I got off active duty, I went into the corporate world, still doing nights and weekends and some photography, and an opportunity came up to buy a camera store. And so I bought a camera store in 2001 that came with its own photo lab, which was great because I was running a color darkroom out of my house, manual darkroom. So this all kind of blended really well. I was learning commercial and product photography on my own with some mentors, but they kind of got to gel it all together in this camera store. Turned the back room into a commercial photo studio and a portrait studio, had the front end as a retail camera store. So I was kind of getting it from all ends. It was really nice.
And you still are?
Well, I closed the camera store in 2011. The economy up in the Chicago area really wasn't supporting camera stores very well. The back room was doing well, so I took that part out and reformed the company and started just Keith French Photography as a commercial marketing and advertising business. But I still run my film lab. I still process film, C41, which is great. People love it. And black and white, of course, as well as photography. Yeah.
So can people mail their film to you?
Oh yeah, they can mail their film to me. I do get little care packages every once in a while. That information's on my website, kfrenchphoto.com. So yeah.
kfrenchphoto.com, because as far as I know, we don't have anyone who processes film around
Wow.
here. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not big city here, you know, we're small.
True,
You're Chicago,
true.
you're big time, you know, but
Yeah.
I don't think we have anyone who processes film. I know
Okay.
we don't in Naples anyway, where I
Wow.
live.
Yeah, still process film. It's great. People, it's back on the uptick, and it's nice because the newer clients are much younger than the current clients.
So they won't die off on you.
So, well, I'm not so worried about that, but it's nice to see this next generation getting involved in the art side of photography, and they see the value in film versus just spray and pray digital, like a lot
Wow.
of cell phone users are. So.
Now you are primarily a commercial photographer,
Yes.
and you do advertising type of things
Mm-hmm.
and that. So food photography is just one component of what you do.
That's correct. Yes.
Right.
Yes, it is.
But of course, you know, we like to teach something in every class. So today it's going to be about food photography. So
Absolutely.
I just want the audience to know that he is not limited to food photography. Keith is really an amazing photographer. He knows about studio lighting, everything. But we're going to talk specifically about food today. So tell me, like, about food photography in general. Are you doing it mostly, like, does somebody hire you to do food photography, and then you walk our audience through?
Yes, so most of the time the food photography calls come from a new kitchen or a new restaurant. Lately, the last individual, they were doing a meal prep in the morning, internet delivery, or however they were managing it, but they needed menu photos. And so what they were doing is they were building a 3-week calendar with 2 meals per day, but they needed photos of those meals. And so I was going into their kitchen over a short process, maybe 6 weeks, and photographing 7 to 10 meals over maybe a 2.5, 3 hour period while their chef was cooking them up and prepping them up for me.
So they didn't make a special day for you. They just
no, we
you
so
did it
they
while they were doing the stuff. Oh, because they wouldn't have the ingredients.
we were doing it at the tail end. So they were getting their morning food prep out of the way, and then we would put some time together off to the side in the kitchen. So
Okay.
it was small, it was tight. We made it work. And they asked for some strange angles. I was really trying to coach them a little bit, but they were making it fit their website. I guess they had a template to fit. So yeah, I'm flexible. I'll offer my expertise if they want to share it, but I'm going to listen to the client when, you know, they know what they have to fit. So.
And by that you mean it had to be not square or square or something like that, or like from the top or side or something like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. So
Okay.
this specific client, they wanted almost like a criminal profile shot of all their foods. They wanted a top down, and they wanted a sitting angle, how you would see it if it was placed in front of you at a table, which I get that. I like that sitting angle. That's typical. That's what you see mostly. A lot of your successful images more from that angle. Straight down, it's not harder to light. It's just an odd look. Some dishes look very good, some not as appealing.
Okay, so
But-
I just learned something right
Right.
now. So you're saying that the best, I mean, best is a relevant term, but the
Yeah.
best angle in general is the angle that the customer would be looking at the food while they're about to eat it.
Yes.
That's usually the best angle.
In
for
my
food
opinion,
photography.
in my
Okay.
opinion. But you know, when I talk with the chefs, because most of the time I'm working for the chef is building his or her presentation on what that plate's going to look like when it's dropped in front of them, in
Okay.
front of their client, in front of their customer.
Right, because boy,
So-
chefs are artists, aren't
Yes,
they?
they have a front and a back of the plate, you know, so So unlike working for like a big chain restaurant that has their own in-house food studio and they have several food preparation people and several dishes and food artists, you know, that are making it look just perfect so it goes on their sign and it stays there for, you know, 60, 90 days. The chefs have their very specific presentation and they're plating it the way they want it to look.
Right.
And they want it photographed from that specific angle.
Okay,
And so that's how we
interesting.
shoot it. So and it usually takes 2 dishes. One dish is the fill-in or the setup dish, so we can get the lighting just perfect on that dish, and then zip it out of the way, drop in the fresh new hot one or cold one, you know, so it hasn't wilted or moved or wiggled or steaming or whatever, right?
Okay.
So,
Now,
and
how
some
would
do
you-
wiggle.
Let's talk about lighting, because
Sure.
obviously you're in a meal prep area. It's probably like fluorescent lights and right. I mean,
Sometimes.
horrible lighting, right?
Yes,
So-
sometimes.
So what do you do?
If we have to shoot in the kitchen, or if it's just a restaurant that has limited or no lighting, then I will bring one giant softbox, and that'll be my makeshift sun window.
Okay.
You know, so it's a 36 by 24 softbox, and I'll move it back as far as I can, but I'm usually limited. I rarely have more than 6 or 7 feet inside an actual prep area, but it'll act like my window, and so then I
Use a
will.
strobe or
Yes, I put a big speed light behind it, not a speed light, a travel light. So I have an old travel light that's perfect for that, 750 watt seconds,
okay.
and a big speed light. So, and then I'll use, you know, reflectors, bounce cards, maybe a small fill if I need a small light with a snoot just to highlight a rim light on something. It just depends how the colors are separating on the dish.
Okay, well that was a good thing. What do you mean by it depends on what the color? how the color-
So let's say someone is going to have like a salsa dish, but they have a brown meat behind it.
Okay.
And so that salsa, that red, green, kind of looks brownish already. And depending on which side of the plate the chef wants the meat, there might not be a good, clean definition of color.
Okay.
So I'll bring in a snoot light just off maybe the back angle to maybe run like you would use a hair light in a studio on someone's head. Same thing, you just shoot it across the top of that food from just the right angle to give it a little white rim light to help separate the salsa from the brown meat.
Okay.
So that's one trick.
And so how many lights do you usually bring with you?
Do I bring?
Yeah.
Everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty. I literally pack out the back of my station wagon. I have a Ford Flex, and I bring more stuff that I know I'll need, but I don't know what I'll need because everything changes. So I have 4x6 blackout boards, 4x6 whiteout boards in feet, right?
And
Big
when
boards.
you say board, go ahead.
They're foam core.
Okay.
You know, but they're big 4x6 foot boards that I might need to black out a window, or I need to black out one of those ugly fluorescent lights, or I'm getting a horrible reflection on something, so I'll put my big black board up. And I also have an 8 foot by 6 foot black cloth that I might need to block some lighting out. So I
And
bring
do
a
you
lot.
work with an assistant?
Sometimes, not always.
How do you black out something like a board above, like?
Well, kind of like we're
Somebody
doing on
holds it,
studio here. I have a lot of light stands, right? What do they say? The photographer with the most light stands wins. I have a lot of light. My light stands fill a goalie equipment bag. If you've ever seen a goalie equipment bag, it's very big. And I fill that with light stands, heavy duty, light duty, and so I have some light duty ones that hold the foam core and just the squeeze clamps that hold them in place.
Okay.
So, or a background drop, or a background stand that we use for portrait photography. I could use that to drape the black cloth over, just like I was setting up a background. Yep.
How long does it take you to set up for a shoot?
Well, when I walk in, and if it's the first time I'm there, I kind of have to figure out what they expect from me. You can only get so much over the phone, but it could be 30 minutes, it could be 2 hours.
Wow.
That's rare. 30 minutes to 45 minutes is probably average.
Okay, so there's a lot of setup time.
Can be,
The
and a
setup-
lot of gear stays in the car.
Yeah.
I don't, unless, I'm like, oh, I need this, and I go out and get it. But
I am by no means a food photographer, but I had this great gig going on for a long time, and my friend Charlie stole it from me, and then somebody stole it from him. But anyway, I was doing a lot of food photography for a nice steakhouse in town, and just bartering.
Okay.
But I was bartering my full rate, so
Sure.
you know, I got some nice dinners out of that, and I loved it. But whatever. I never took you, did I, Joe? I took you?
Lunch.
Okay, well, I took him to lunch.
Lunch there is like dinner anywhere else, price-wise.
Price-wise, they're very expensive. But where was I going with that? Oh, the amount of stuff I brought was crazy because lights mostly.
Yes.
And I just used speed lights. I didn't use anything but speed lights, but a couple times I used like 5 speed lights on just one dish.
Yeah.
And I did bring an assistant that time that I used so many, but I also used the people who worked at I didn't have all those light stands, man. Now I know that I got to get a goalie bag. Anyway.
Yeah, it's heavy. Keeps you in shape.
But I was amazed at how many lights I needed. But it came out really good. That's why I was so mad when I lost that job. But I have a story about that job. It was so funny because, you know, Charlie, who took the job, is a really good friend of mine. And I was talking about, and it's actually in one of my classes, we talk about like compressing the picture to make things look like they're closer together. And so they came out with, they had a hamburger on one plate,
Okay.
the French fries on another plate, big steak fries, and then the ketchup and mustard in cute little, you know, containers in the other plate. 3 big plates.
Right.
I'm like, how am I going to make that work? And so I went out to my car and got my 150 to 600 millimeter lens. I went out the door, and it looked pretty
From
good.
a distance, yeah.
Charlie, I'm telling Charlie that story. He goes, oh, I just had him put them on one plate.
There you go. That fixes it too. 1 plate and a macro lens, and you're done. See?
But I was like you were saying with the chef, I was so aware of, because the chef made me feel so good because he came out. I didn't even know him the first time I went there, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a big fan of yours." I'm like, "Wow, I'm important." But he listened to my podcast.
That's impressive.
But anyway, so I was thinking that same thing though, that this is how he wants it to look.
Right.
So I was trying to work with that, but I guess you could at least try.
Well, a lot of times I'll just ask, you know, the chef does want it to look a certain way, but sometimes the chef isn't always the one who plates it either. So depending on the type of restaurant. And so then I just ask a couple quick clarifying questions. So.
Now, do you ever use natural light?
When it's there, I will. If I'm there during the day, and maybe it's a night or an evening dinner restaurant, so we're shooting during the day, I'll ask if they have the right kind of lighting. Hey, can we shoot this out at one of the tables? I had a sushi restaurant that was in downtown Chicago. It was perfect for that.
So window light, is that what you're
Window
using?
lighting, yeah, the window lighting came in. It was good white balance lighting already. The sun was shining. The building across the street was white. Couldn't ask for a better sub. It was a giant reflector. It was great. You know, and then I still use my gray card though to nail the white balance, because the last thing you want your sushi to look is weird in color, because people.
It's raw fish.
Yeah, so you need the color, it needs to be accurate. So I still use my gray card for white balance.
All right, if our audience is not familiar with how to do that, can you walk us through that?
Oh, sure. So a gray card is actually just, for me, a cardboard card. It's about the size of a sheet of paper, and it's card stock, and it's 18% gray. And I photograph that card in the lighting that I'm going to photograph the food in. And from that moment, I tell my camera, this is my neutral density gray, or my 18% gray, and the camera reestablishes pure white off of that card, and everything's color balanced from that point on.
So you do a custom white balance.
Yes.
Are you a Canon shooter?
Well, I'm Canon migrating into Sony, but right now, pretty much all of my higher photography is still Canon.
So it's very easy to do a custom white balance on a Canon.
Yes.
I struggle with a Nikon, but I am a Canon shooter.
Okay.
Is it easy to do on a Sony, a custom white balance?
I haven't done one yet.
Oh, okay.
I haven't had my Sony very long, so.
Okay, I'm just curious because I struggle with the Nikons. Every time I think I get it, the next time I try to do it, either it's a different Nikon or, you know, so I've never tried it on a Sony. That's why I was curious.
Yeah.
So I do talk about, like I have a class called the 4 Weeks to Proficiency in Photography. It's an interactive online class. And I talk about white balance and I explain it, but I don't go into custom white balance in that class.
Okay.
And I wouldn't in that class because it's just a starter class. But I always think I should get into this as people get more experience. They really need to know how to really nail that color.
Right.
But every time I try it on Nikon, I get so confused that I get over. I think, well, I'm not going to do it then.
Well, I really, I mean, a lot of people say, well, if you shoot in RAW, you can just use an eyedropper tool and nail it. But you know, you get in some of these restaurants, their lighting may be just replaced by maintenance. They're not paying attention to what temperature each can of light in the ceiling is based on. So the light's on, the light's coming through the window. I've got sunlight in the window. I'm going to have some blue light because I'm under a canopy, if you will. I'm under the roof, so it's shade. So you're going to have a multitude of lighting. So shooting that gray card in the lighting I'm recording in, it pretty much takes care of that. And then I don't have to worry about it. If I still want to sweeten it up a little bit later in post, at least I'm working with a really good base.
Yeah.
So,
okay, that was really good advice. So one of these days I have to master how to do it on the Nikon so I can teach it. That would be a good Tuesday video probably.
Is it a hit?
Maybe I'll borrow a friend's Nikon and I'll write a blog about it.
And I'll copy it. I'll share it. How's that?
There you go.
We'll win-win. All right, now what about like colors? Now you talked about using flash to help with separation. Because
Correct.
separation is let's talk about separation for a little while.
Okay.
Because that's a really important topic that it's a really important part of composition that a lot of people forget about.
Yes.
And to me, I'm like a fanatic about separation, you know, because I was trained as a portrait photographer, and you know, how are you going to take a black shirt on a black background or a white shirt on a white? You need to learn how to light for the separation. How are you going to do whatever? And then you don't want anybody to look fat, so you move their arms out a little bit or whatever.
Does that work?
But
Yep,
separation was
exactly.
kind of beat into my head.
Yes, yes.
But now, I really don't teach a lot of portrait photographers, and separation I look at people and it's like they never heard that word. Of course, it's in my 4 Weeks to Proficiency class. You got to believe it in the composition class. But with food, now you did talk about using light to separate.
A little bit of rim
Are there
lighting.
other ways?
Well, the beauty of food, most of it is different colors. So we have that benefit going for us already. You know, you've got your red tomatoes and your greens and your green lettuces and your white rice and your butter is yellow and your green beans and brown meats and light tan, you know, chicken colored meats. So they do naturally tend to separate. But again, as a photographer, I want to guide my client's eyes. I want to guide the viewer's eyes. So maybe not necessarily light separation, but now I'll use focus separation. I'll use a macro lens and focus on maybe a third of the way back on that hamburger. So the front lip of the hamburger is slightly out of focus. The middle is dead sharp, and whatever few French fries that might be there, maybe some of the condiments that are sprayed or out on top of the hamburger, and then it just fades back into softness again. And they come back, right? Because if there's not a person in the image, then we go to the sharpest point of the picture. Right. So I want them to see that hamburger, boom, they go right to the hamburger, because that's the first thing they see, it's sharp focus. But yet there's enough of everything else in the picture, you could tell it comes with fries or not, or
it's
whatever.
not like super blurry. It's
right,
just
it's just a little off, just a little soft. So, but I clear that with the chef as well. What do they want this plate to show? Most of them do like the shots, and I'll show them both. I'll show them a shot.
You'll do both shots. You'll do like the whole thing sharp.
I'll do one, at f/16 or f/11, whatever, and show it without a macro lens, maybe at 35 or 40 millimeter. But then I'll do one with, one of the macro lenses, and I'd say 9 times out of 10 they like the selected focus shot better.
Okay. So what are some other ways we can guide the viewer's eye around the food photography? Because you're really giving some good stuff here.
Well, leading lines too, just like we do in landscape photography. So you can shoot a plate that has that round edge and just place that edge in the frame as such a way that that edge brings them back to the food. So I've done that. Also working with the chef, you know how they like to squirt their little sauces on the dish or whatever? You can use that sauce as a leading line. Even if it's slightly out of focus, have a little spray of we had a brisket guy. His barbecue was amazing. It was killing me. By the way, before I go on every photo shoot, I eat a big meal. So I could focus on shooting.
I'm hungry right now while we're talking.
Yeah. So this guy had an amazing brisket. And what he did is he just drizzled this trail of barbecue sauce from the front of the plate around the side of the plate right into his pile of brisket. And and there were some fries, and he was very artistic. And then through the selective focusing, you just followed it right in. So just leading lines was another way of doing it, because he wanted the brisket at the back of the plate, not in the front.
And it was a white plate?
It was close enough. It was, I would say, mostly definitely a light color plate.
Yeah, because our eye goes to the lightest thing in the picture,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So if there's that little line of sauce, it's just going to go right to
a little
the
roadmap to taste buds.
Do a lot of people use white plates?
80%. If we're using plates, they're usually white. Yes. White plates probably are the most used, and then butcher block something is usually the second most used, but it's not even a close second. So, because they want to draw attention to the food.
So because it's like a white frame almost.
In a
the
sense,
plate.
depending.
And so your eye goes to in that case, your eye goes to the darker part of the picture because it's.
That's all there is to see. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. When you're doing natural light, do you ever use a polarizer? Do you get glare?
I don't have too much struggle with glare, but I have my polarizer with me, and I also have two polarized panels that if I need to hang them in front of the light to offset some of that.
What is that?
They're linear polarizers. They're not circular. And so you got to hang them in front of your light, and it already polarizes that light, and then when you use your circular polarizer on your lens, you get even more control. It's an old film trick, actually. It's an old slide film trick, but it works really, really well. And there's probably a lot of people that are scratching their head right now going, what the heck's a linear polarizer?
I didn't know about like lens. Now how big are they?
Well, you actually buy, it's a film. It feels like a film. It looks like a Roscoe gel, but it's heavier because it's polarized, so there's 3 layers to it. And you have to frame them on a 1x2 frame, and there's a front and a back. You have to shoot through it in the proper direction, or you don't get the correcting properties out of it.
Wow. Boy, you do bring a lot of stuff, don't you?
I bring a lot of stuff.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Well, I remember a crew that was there to help me from the chef was like, we're bringing all of this in? I'm like, no, just those 4 black bags, and the rest we'll see if we need it. The silver trunks will stay in the car.
Wow.
Until we need them.
Wow.
But you never know.
I know, you don't know.
So.
You don't know.
Right.
What about texture? Like, you want to bring out the texture of the food. How do you do that?
The texture really just comes out with the right glass. Again, selective focus. If you got like beans in a sauce, like pork and beans, or whatever they call it, these baked beans, you'd like to see more of the bean than so much of the sauce. So a little bit of angle, maybe tilt up a little bit or tilt it down, maybe change the angle of the plate so you can get the pattern of the beans, and then let that sauce just kind of run down over them. I'm getting hungry too. And but then using the right lens, you don't want to shoot it with too wide angle. You want to get some depth, some focus, and that helps by pulling that texture out and just making sure you have good glass, right? Good glass, good sharp glass gives you good sharp texture.
And you're talking about lenses.
Lenses, yes, absolutely.
But you just brought that up that I think is a good, like a really hard thing for me. You're saying like baked beans or like what if somebody has a soup?
Yeah.
How do you make that look good?
Trial and error? No,
so
soup.
Boring or
soup.
Something boring like that. I mean, usually they put a little leaf in there or something that helps, but.
Yeah, soups are a bit of a challenge. Sometimes we try to shoot soup with a drop hitting it.
Oh,
So
cool.
we'll
That's a
we'll
great
drop
idea.
drop something in it, and time it so the soup is splashing, or we'll dab it so that if it's a water-based soup, not a cream-based soup, it'll ripple. So we'll ripple it and shoot it that way to get a little bit of texture on the surface of it. So reflectivity is a problem with soup, because a lot of times you're shooting with your light at the back 45s off the camera, out there rather than straight on or behind the camera. And so you can get some reflections off a soup. So using that drop technique helps get rid of that.
That's a great idea.
I know, I'm giving away all these secrets.
No, you're really good, man. You got to show this interview to all your potential food photographer customers, because you really know what you're doing. I mean, that's a lot of people. I've actually had food photographers on this show before, but I'm learning a lot right now.
Okay.
But see, now here's what happens is I have a train of thought, and then I get into the what about the soup, and then I forget where I was. Oh, okay, I remember. All right, so let's say, all right, you already told me that you'll do a shallow depth of field type and a sharp, like everything sharp.
Yes.
Do you just do close-ups, or do you do the whole table setting, or does it depend, or
A lot of it does.
Decide?
So a lot of it does come out of the decision after discussing it with the restaurant owner and or the manager and or the chef, or all of them together, how they want to use these images. I may shoot the entire place setting and use that. They might use that on the front of the menu, or they might use it as a background on their website. And then same picture or same subject, zoom in on just the meat or just the vegetables to make a point somewhere else on the webpage. So we might actually take one picture or make one place setting and get 5 or 6 different pictures out of it, depending on how they want to use it. Typically, if it's a newer facility, a newer restaurant, they're making new menus, we're going to do all kinds of angles and shots, because they need for background pictures to put graphics over the top, and then they want very specific pictures next to the menus or in certain places on their website. So we're going to do all of that, yeah. So
what about backgrounds? So like if you're shooting in a restaurant, I'm just thinking about the times I've done food photography, and I worked at this one restaurant, and it was only up at night, so we were there during the day, and we were using a lot of window light. It was really pretty. But oh my God, I had to clean up the whole restaurant. There was there were distractions in the background everywhere.
Yep, and you're the only one who saw them, because they walk past it every day 25 times, and you're looking through the viewfinder, and there's a yellow broom handle sticking up, right?
Yes.
And you're like, oh, we got to move that. We got to change that. Can you put a cover over that vent? Can we do this? Can we turn the lighting off on the salad bar, because nobody's using it anyway? And yes. So they're relying on your eye to look around the restaurant and see things that they're oblivious to because they're used to it.
Yeah.
Right? Best place to hide in plain sight, right?
Yeah, I think it's true. How you're in your own house.
Yes, same way.
Something's broken, and you've been ignoring it for a year, and then 10 years later it's still broken because you don't even see it anymore.
You've been to my house.
I've been to your house.
They've been to my house.
Oh my gosh. What about if they have like real bright, vibrant, like a Caribbean restaurant? Would that be distracting to the food?
It goes with their theme. I do have one, not so much Caribbean restaurant, but they just have a very loud vibe. Their bowls are bright blue, almost like parrot blue, and their coffee mugs are parrot yellow, and they have a lot of color in their dishes. And initially, it was in my mind like a struggle, like how do I do this? And I just like, well, just go with it. I mean, this is their decor. Everything in this building is painted this way anyway. Just run with it. All their tabletops were bright orange. All their chairs were green. And so what we did is we actually used the color, and instead of just plating the food on a plate, we put 3 or 4 plates out. They had a little dining bar, and shot that from 6-7 feet away, and showed the dining bar, the stools, the tabletop, the background. Show it all. It's bright and brilliant. Might as well use it.
Okay,
so,
and it doesn't overpower the food though. But the food was colorful too.
The food was very colorful. That first shoot, we were covering mostly breakfast type items. So the yellow eggs on the blue plate, it was a no-brainer.
Oh my God, that's
it came out really nice. And the toast was like the flattest color, right? Because toast is kind of, there's no big saturation in toast.
Yeah.
But it fit. It was a nice offset. So,
Okay.
and the waffles were a nice offset.
Man, I should have eaten before
I know.
Now, do you use a tripod when you're doing food photography?
I can't remember a time when I have not used a tripod in food photography.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm going to set it up, move something, come back. The camera, move one thing at a time, whether it's a light, a panel, a green bean, whatever you're moving, move one at a time. You got to keep the camera in the same place. So yes, on a tripod.
Always on a tripod.
Or some type of a stand, yes.
Okay, okay. Do you have, a lot of the food photography videos on YouTube and things like that, it's all more about food styling than food photography?
Yes.
Do you do food styling, like use toothpicks to prop things and?
If it's necessary, I'll do a little bit of propping like that, holding stuff up. But 9 times out of 10, my chefs want it to look a very specific way. And if it's supposed to wilt, it's going to wilt. If they want it to stand up straight, they're going to have it standing up straight with something already. If I run into an angle reflection issue, I'm going to say, hey, I need to move something. I'm going to show you what I'm going to move. And they're like, okay. And I'll use a toothpick, or I have a whole bunch of the very front tips of these wooden wedges that you buy, shims. You buy a pack of shims at the hardware store. I've cut like the first ½ inch off of every one of them so that I can break them off into little pieces and use them as little wood shims to hold a noodle in place. They're tiny. And I have some surgical tweezers, and I have some big tweezers, and I have some little forceps, because our fingers are too big and fat. And plus you're moving stuff, you're touching sauces, and you might leave an imprint.
Yeah.
So I get in there, with tools.
That's good though. That's
I tried chopsticks; they're too fat, and I'm good with chopsticks.
Are you?
Yeah.
Not me. I have a girlfriend who's Filipina, and she moved back to the Philippines, and so I went to visit her. And she's like, you have to use chopsticks here, because I went out to her many Chinese restaurants when she lived here, and I'm like, I'm not using chopsticks. She's like, you have to use them here. I couldn't do it. So she put a little rubber band at the
one end. Yeah.
The one end. She goes, here, training wheels.
Training wheels. Right. It is. It is. That's funny.
What about the reflection on glassware?
Glassware, it's the same tool. I'll take those little shims and just rock them a little left, rock them a little right, left or right, just enough, and a lot of times I might want a little bit of reflection in that glassware or in that silverware. So I might have a small white card that's suspended above, right above the food. I might just hold that, or it's on the end of a stick, and I'll hold it like a paddle until I get just the right glare in or off an item.
And the glare just kind of gives it a little more depth?
Your silverware, if you light it wrong, looks black. So by just getting a little reflectivity in it, then it comes out a little more silver or whitish looking. Yes.
Okay.
So
that's a good tip too.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm giving it all away here. Can we get a credit card swipe on everybody who watches this?
All right, last part of this.
Okay.
What about processing?
Post-processing?
Yeah.
So you remember earlier I said I'm an old film guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to post-process everything, but I do shoot my digital in standard everything. So I don't have auto contrasts going in or auto saturations. I shoot it as neutral as I can, and then from my memory, I will go in and just do some small incremental changes. One of the classes I taught this weekend, I told people if I have to spend more than 10 minutes on a picture, I did something wrong. And that's whether I'm shooting it in nature or in portraits. Portraits, if you got to fix wrinkles or you got to fix eyeglasses, that's different. But same thing with food. If a client has me shoot 27 plates over a couple of days, can you imagine spending a half an hour on each one? You can't bill enough. They won't pay for that.
Yeah.
So I want to light it right. I want to get it right in camera, and then just use a little bit of sharpening, because we all need to sharpen a little bit. That's just part of digital. Maybe a little bit of saturation. if a certain dish is just leaning a little direction, maybe the mac and cheese doesn't look just the right color, I'll go in and do a color selection adjustment and raise that in saturation or in contrast to help bring that out. But it's, to me anyways, I see it so fast. It takes way longer to explain it than it does to do it.
Wow.
And boom, just
Yeah.
getting it out. So
What about like vignetting or anything to draw the eye in? Do you do anything like that, or?
I've done that in the past. Just certain, again, whatever was in the background, the angle we shot at, the angle the client wanted it shot at, that might bring in some vignetting. But I don't automatically vignette a plated dish like I might a portrait or a product.
Okay.
Not so much with food.
Okay, that's, yeah. I'm going to just tell you what I do with processing, because 90% of my food photography is on the run. Because I work for this fancy dinner club called, I can't do French accent, so I'm going to humiliate myself right now, but the Chaîne de Rôtisseurs.
Sure.
That's as close as I can
Spell
get.
that for us.
Actually, I can spell it. I just can't say it. But it's a very upscale dinner club, and
Okay.
they meet at different clubs and restaurants, and they want pictures of the food because they're all about food and
Yeah.
fancy wine.
Yeah.
But I have to do it. Half the time, the waiters are zipping by, and I'm taking a picture of
Wow.
it. I mean, it's not
That's
like
hard.
anything food photography, or I have to wait till they sit it in front of the customer and just go in with an on-camera flash.
Don't mind me.
Well, fortunately,
By
they
the way,
all
you're gonna
know me
eat that?
by- Yeah, yeah. But anyway, of course, it's an on-camera flash with a diffuser. I use the Gary Fung Light
Yes.
Sphere diffuser, which I love that thing. And it's very flat, of course, because I'm just taking the quickest pictures I can, and
Right.
whatever angle I can get, whatever. So in Lightroom, I take the adjustment brush and I lighten up parts just to make them stand out.
Sure. Yeah.
Not very much, because it'll start getting ugly, but just a little dab. And
Yeah.
then the people, my customers, are like, "You are so good at food
Eh.
photography," and I'm thinking, "This is not food photography."
This is food editing.
Yeah.
Hey, still. Whatever pays the bills, right?
Yeah.
That's
But
great.
They don't. I mean, I want to show them the stuff I did at the steakhouse. How that was good. You know, this is
Yeah.
not good food photography, but just that little extra step that I do in editing, I think they really appreciate it. But you know, there's 4 dishes. I mean, I can do that
Yeah.
on a job.
Would you like a little suggestion?
Yes.
So depending on how much freedom they give you and how much space you have, if you have a little LED panel that's about this big that you can sit on a little tripod and put that behind the plate off to the left or the right from the direction you're shooting it, and you just shine that in, that'll give you some amazing lighting with that Gary Fong, especially.
All right, I'm going to rework that so the audience
Okay.
and I can understand it again. Okay, so I have a LED light that is 4x4.
Well, 4x6, the ones that
4x6.
I have. Yep.
Oh, I've got some of those.
Yes.
Okay, they're like $20 now, $25 on Amazon.
Great. I didn't pay that little. I got mine early on when they
I
were
was
still
going to
expensive.
say, when I did wedding videos, you know, I quit, I guess, 15 years ago doing that, but those video lights were $200.
Yeah.
They're $24 now.
Nice.
Anyway, so I'm keeping my on-camera flash.
Yes.
I'm shooting at eye level,
However you want to line it up. Yep.
and the light is on a little tripod off to where, like
So
45
so
degree
imagine
angle, or?
from the back side 45 degrees off. So you're almost creating backward Rembrandt lighting. So it's behind the subject, and it's 45 up and 45 off, straight across from the camera,
Okay.
and shining back down on the food, and that just gives it nice rim lighting and white rim lighting while you play with your Gary
I'm
Fong.
gonna try that.
works
I
pretty
hope
good.
the next job will let me. You know, the
Right.
chefs like me to go back in there, but they're
Okay.
so busy they don't have time for me. But if
Small table,
some of them
yeah.
will give me a whole plate, not many of them.
Okay.
But some of them will give me a plate. But the next job, that chef will give
Give it
me
a
a whole
try.
plate. I know him.
Yeah.
He will give me a whole plate to play with. And of course, some of my customers at the Shen who belong to the Shen are probably going to be hearing this. So now I've got pressure to do it.
And I'm
some of
assuming,
my Shen customers are good photographers.
and assuming you're using a speed light in your off-camera flash, if you're
It's an on-camera
I mean, your
flash.
on-camera flash with the Gary Fong, if you're in TTL and you shoot it about a third under, then it still lights everything really nice, but it lets that backlight give you some nice rim light.
Okay, third
So-
step under, but in TTL. Okay, I got it. I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
Now I have pressure, but not until September 11th, because this is not airing
Yeah, I
for
hear
a
this is airing for a while.
while.
So now you have time to practice and you have no excuse.
I know. All right, so tell us what, as of September, what projects are coming up for you, Keith?
Well, I have a lot of workshops this summer. I love hosting workshops. Those are a lot of fun.
Fall.
Oh, in the fall. What's coming up in fall? That's right, after September 11th. It's pretty much just, I'm diving back into my commercial market.
So you're mostly commercial during the winter and workshops during the summer? Is
That's
that kinda-
all year long. I just plot them in my calendar in between my workshops. But in the late part of the year, in October, I do have my late fall October workshop in Southern Illinois. That's a beautiful 3-day workshop. That's stunning color. The deep canyons in the Shawnee National Forest, people have no clue they're there. It's just a blast. Wildlife, flowers, you name it, and the colors just jump off the page. That's always at the end of October. And then I just get busy for Christmas, film processing, keeping the lab running, and just keeping my commercial clients. They're using their year up, their end of year marketing budgets up. So, they got one more piece to add to the catalog for 2021. They got one more piece here, one more of that. So that's kind of how November and December kind of roll. And which I'm glad I'm not printing Christmas cards like I used to, because we were doing all-nighters back in those days from about the 10th through the 20th of December, keeping 13,000 Christmas cards per day being printed for however many customers. So I'm okay with the internet taking that business away from me.
No, okay, so do you have your 2021 workshops on your website yet?
Not the 2021 ones
Okay.
yet. So 2020 is out there. I could
Well,
tell
you
you.
better get to it before this airs.
So I could tell you that there will be some awesome workshops in 2021. Definitely an Oregon coast. Definitely a North Dakota ruins and abandoned prairie shots. And then definitely the Southwest Colorado in late September with the golden aspens. Those are week-long and amazing workshops, and the feedback has been nothing short of stellar. And because we cap it at only 10 people, there's an amazing ratio of learning to hosting. So it's not a big free-for-all with 30 people running around and you're tripping over each other's pictures and tripods.
And you have two.
So yeah, so Tony Reynez is my workshop partner for the week-long workshops.
So there are two instructors to 10
Two instructors
people,
to 10
so
people. It's a great
that's
ratio.
good, yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. Sorry, Tony.
And what is your website? Where can the audience find you?
You can find me at kfrenchphoto.com. You can find me on Instagram at Keith French Photo and on Facebook at Keith French Commercial Photography.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the Understand Photography Show.
It was fun. It was a real honor. Thank you.
Yeah, you're really, I really learned a lot. It was really good. And to the audience, I hope you'll check out the show notes, understandphotography.com, because I think there's a lot of good stuff in this show, so we'll summarize it to make it a little bit easier to see the different things we talked about. While you're on our website, be sure to join our mailing list. The first thing you're going to see when you go to understandphotography.com is you'll see click here for freebies, and go ahead and click, choose something that's interesting to you. We have all kinds of good stuff there. You can choose them all if you want, and in return we ask for your email address to be put on our mailing list. Don't worry, we're not going to kill you. We're going to send out one email newsletter a month. I'm Peggy Farren. Thank you for joining us on the Understand Photography Show. We will see you next week.
Get up!